So I'd like to begin by asking all of you a simple question. Raise your hand if you identify as being right-handed. Okay, now raise your hand if you identify as being left-handed. And now, just for fun, raise your hand if you can actually write with both hands. Okay, just like I thought. As you can see by that quick survey, most of the people in this room are right-handed, with a few of you guys being the opposite. As a left-handed person myself, I can definitely say that I've experienced being the odd one out, not just in the classroom, but in the real world as well, as it can sometimes be difficult to complete what is considered everyday tasks in our society. So today, I'll be discussing the history of left-handed people, how this generic trait is decided, and the advantages and disadvantages of being part of the minority in today's majority right-handed world. So what is the actual history behind left-handed people? Well, the human population has been around for millions of years, meaning that the ratio of left to right-handed people has been pretty much the same for those millions of years. And although that trait will probably and has continued to be the common recessive trait, historical evidence has showed that back in the day, there was a higher percentage of left-handed people than there are in today's world. This is because there's a large drop based on societies that will often look down on people who are considered left-handed. According to Time magazine, in an article titled, "How Lefties First Gained Acceptance," as Time explained in 1969, criminals were often seen as sinister since the literal word has meant left for centuries. In the Middle Ages, for instance, the left-hander lived in danger of being accused of practicing witchcraft. With this fear in mind, many left-handers would stray away from using their right hand. Some parents would even force their left-handed children to use their right hand because it's considered correct or the proper way. The history has now resulted in only 10% of people worldwide being left-handed, thus providing an explanation to the results of the survey we saw earlier. So if being left-handed is so sinister or wrong, then why does it keep reoccurring? I'll give you two answers: genetics and human evolution. Let's first talk genetics. With hand dominance being one of the most common traits that is mostly known for being recessive, it's no wonder why genetics has had such a huge role on this specific trait. The chance of being left or right-handed in today's world is often determined by the handedness of your own parents. According to a video by TED titled, "Why Are Some People Left-Handed?" If your father was left-handed, but your mother was right-handed, you'll have a 17% chance of being left-handed. However, two righties will have a left-handed child only 10% of the time. The video further explains that even if both parents turn out to be left-handed, you will still have less than a 25% chance of even being born left-handed. Both of these statistics show that although handedness is largely determined by your parents' genes, it still leaves left-handed children in the minority of today's right majority world. This concept later leads us to our next idea, human evolution, and the outside pressures that come with it. Over time, humans have been able to gain physical traits that allow them to live in their communities based on competitive and cooperative pressures, based on the environment in which they are born. For the longest time, our society was organized by competitive pressures, meaning that both left and right-handed people would constantly engage in combat. Now, because there aren't many lefties in this specific competitive society, they will end up having a great advantage to those who are right-handed. Thus, that is going to lead to a negative frequency-dependent selection, meaning that the rarer the trait is, the more viable it will become. This will also mean that if humans were evolved to live in just a purely competitive society, then the advantage of being left-handed would continue to grow until about 50% of the population had this common trait. Now, fortunate for us, we don't just live in competition, we also live in cooperative pressures as well. For example, the chance of someone doing well in the sport of golf doesn't really depend on your handedness. This is because you aren't performing a specific task that allows you to physically affect your opponent, such as fighting or physically blocking their shot. This results in having a less variety of golf clubs or any necessary tools, and has led to a small number of left-handed golf players on the national level. So with scientific factors, along with genetics, with competitive and cooperative pressures, lefties have been able to remain a small yet stable minority. Now, by having this small left-handed minority, you might start to notice a few disadvantages and advantages of having this trait. Unfortunately, it is a very normal thing for common objects to not be made for the left-handed kind. In the past, while shopping, even I would have to put the word left-handed next to an item just so that I can make sure I can use the item without struggling. Some of the most common items that are not always made for the left-handed kind include scissors, spiral notebooks, traditional can openers, and of course those common right-handed desks. The good thing is our society has been able to identify these issues and has made significant changes to make left-handed products more available to the public. This is a good sign because without these items, researchers have identified that left-handed people would end up suffering from a high level of accident rates. Now, despite all these disadvantages, left-handedness is still a great trait that can actually have a few benefits. Like I mentioned earlier, being left-handed can give you an advantage in playing right-handed people in competitive sports, such as baseball, tennis, boxing, and even fencing. Another advantage of left-handedness is that it has seen a positive correlation in which left-handed people are more likely to have qualities of creativity and innovation. A few great examples of this include Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Pablo Picasso. In conclusion, being left-handed in today's right-handed world has a lot to do with its history and the tools that are manufactured. Today we discovered the history of this trait, the genetics and scientific factors that affect it, as well as the disadvantages and advantages that correlate with being left-handed. And although some parts of the world still consider this trait to be a sinister thing, I hope that you are all able to gain knowledge on this topic and have a better understanding of what the day in the life of a left-handed person is in today's right-handed world. Thank you.